Can you hear me? Can you hear me? There we go. Tegan, happy Sunday, DD. Good to have you, Tegan. Hope you had a good 4th of July. Where is all the devil pups in the house? Lots of devil pups have hangovers, no doubt. Without a doubt. Well said, Tegan. Well said. I don't miss those days, that's for sure. No doubt about it. Sorry, Tegan. I'm going to have to get this last little bite. That is hilarious. My gosh, they really are. They really are do have a hangover, don't they? Give it a couple more minutes. This is not normal for devil pups to have a hangover. Come on, everybody. Our little town in England lit up the beacon yesterday in honor of American's birthday. It was a lovely celebration. That is awesome, Tegan. That is awesome. That is awesome. Always wanted to visit there. Always wanted to visit England and, kind of see what it's all about. 'Cause never been there. In all the places I've traveled in the military, I've never made it to England. Definitely like the accent. No doubt about it. Carol, good morning, everyone. Good to have you, Carol. Hey, at least one of the mods is here. That will work. April is in the house. Good to have you, April. Awesome. Good morning, Devil Dog and mods. Hello, April, says Carol. They're slowly coming in. Hey, Tegan had a good point. Said everybody probably had a hangover. No doubt, I'm sure a lot of people did. Brenda, good morning. Hello. All right, everybody. I know there's not many of us, but I'm sure people will pop in as we go along and we'll just have to regurgitate. So, first, we're going to talk about some information on Elena Moore that able to gather. Hangover from the heat, right? No doubt. I can understand that. No doubt about it. So I'm gonna actually before we get to Elena Moore, I'm gonna jump over since it's not a whole lot, but it is some. I'm gonna so we do have a name in the we're gonna go to Johanna. She's the lady from Carlsbad, California. We're gonna go to her first because there's not a lot of new information, just a little bit. And then we'll jump over to Elena's case, which is the main of what I want to talk about today. So, in the case with Joanna Ruth Shields, this is the one from Carlsbad, California, that they hikers found her laying face down, unclothed, unalive. And they did mention there was a name, but this individual was somebody who gave information to a news outlet. And they actually gave him the name. I haven't really looked him up because I was going to wait, but the hiker's name is Gabe, Gabe Holmes, Holmes. He told media outlets that I'm going to read it real quick. I didn't see any blood. She was pale. She had markings around her neck. I don't want to say, choking marks, but when the firefighter lifted her jacket, he confirmed she had a big gash on her head. Now, this is the firefighter who I think would know what was, what she had as far as her condition at the time. I mean, firefighters see a lot of these type of things. EMS, firefighters, they're all trained in some way, shape, or form. Now, he did say that this is one of the hikers named Gabe Holmes. That's what he told the media outlets. Before, they never gave us a name of any of the hikers, nor did they give us a name of her friend that was with her that day, if you all remember correctly. But now they have, I guess because he reached out to the media outlets and told them literally, maybe it was for whatever reasons, but he came out and told them just that. So it's kind of important because that opens the window to kind of like seeing, now that we have a name, we can kind of look at that individual and see what he's about, kind of look at what he had to say. And that's something that we were definitely going to go ahead and start looking into. Now, the commander that's handling the case, the sheriff commander, that is Andreas Rojas. And There's still no official cause of death. And there is no suspects at this time with her case. But the important thing, well, there's more important things. Um, Now, there was a hiker also by the name of Luke Hirema, Herema. He said that the group asked the man, now this is according to him, and this is once again, I think this is the first time we've heard names in this case. But Luke said to the group, asked the man, he was part of that group that came in of hikers. He also said that Johanna went to, he said that this is what the man that was, or the guy that was with Joanna with their hiking, this is what he said when he asked him. He said the man said Joanna went to the bathroom. She was cleaning herself off in a river around 10:30 a.m. And when he went looking for her, he saw her face down in the water, nude, unclothed. That's what Luke Herma said. Okay. So you have two now individuals who have talked to the media that we know of, and that is Luke, Herema, Herma, and then you have the other individual that also talked to the media, and his name is Gabe Holmes, common spelling Holmes. So those are important because, like I said, we'll be able to look up that information from those two and see what else they said, see what else was going on. So that's one of the little things that popped up. We do have a couple of people that have come forward to talk about this, and they would know because they were the hikers there. So that's just something important to keep in mind. And those names are important because that's what you want to look at. That's what you want to look at because that's gonna be able to maybe snowball into more interviews as the case start catches more traction in the mainstream media. Then you're going to start hearing these names, and it's important to know who they are so that way you can kind of follow what they're saying. Because once again, they are the first persons of the hikers that actually found her, with the exception of the man that was with her at the beginning of her hike, you know. So it is crucial. Remember those names if you can. And those are the names that I would look up to find out what you actually can see. April, big hugs. Hello, April, Brenda, Tegan. April says, oh, yeah, the hiker I remember now. Okay, so that's the hikers that on the case. There wasn't a whole lot of information. Just a little. But like I said, those names are important. And they still haven't got back the toxology report. And that's going to be crucial down the road. That's all we're really waiting for, to be honest. Luke, yeah, right? Everybody can remember Luke's. Luke's in everybody's case, it seems like, says April. Awesome. No doubt, right? No doubt. Okay. So that is all I have on that one, on that case. That was really the only thing that kind of stuck out to me. Um, just trying to look it over here. The toxicology report, that's going to tell everything of what happened, literally, just everything that has taken place. That's going to have what if she had anything on her system. That's going to be able to show if this was something where her body shut down for a reason. Yeah, but the law enforcement is still saying that they think this is definitely a suspicious unaliving. Okay, so now let's go to the main one I want to talk to, because there's not a whole lot more into that. Carol sent gold coin for 10 jewels. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate the give. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the channel. So now let's go to the big one with Elena Katherine Moore. from South Carolina. All right. Elena Katherine Moore from South Carolina. Thank you, Carol, for posting those accounts. So in this one, well, I'm going to just refresh it just a little bit on your memory. So Elena Moore is the one that went to the Planet Fitness, and she went to the Planet Fitness, and that was where they last saw her. And then she came out, and video cameras had caught her from CVS to Planet Fitness to CVS down to the Publix grocery store, down going by the backside of Lowe's into the woods. And you all remember that. You all remember that on the 4th, she was at the house. This was June 4th. She was at the apartment where she was acting like she was the DoorDash delivery person, handed John Moore his food, and then left. But she seemed really kind of out of it. She seemed like she was not all there, like really lethargic, right? You guys remember that? Elena is the door girl. Yes, that is correct, April. You know, she's the one that literally went ahead and, for whatever reasons, acted like she was a DoorDash person, gave the food, and then she acted like she wanted to take a step forward into the house to kind of take a look, but realized, oh God, I can't just do that. And we had a lot of speculation in ideas and theories on why that might have been. But here's what's the interesting part. So Moore's husband, we wanted to know, how did she get from point A to point B? Because we know she went to the mental ward, the Three Rivers Mental Ward Institution, on the 4th, probably the 4th, later 4th, probably early 5th, because she was taken to the hospital when she went to another person in the apartment and started looking through their packages on another floor. And then the cops were called, and they came out there and they talked to her, found out she wasn't really all there, like something was wrong with her. So they took her to the hospital at that point, and then they evaluated her, and she checked herself into the Three River facility. That's the facility out there for people who are having like mental issues or traumas or whatever. Elena is the DoorDash on Ring Cam. So the interesting part here is that once they took her to the hospital, they ended up transferring her literally to they ended up taking her from the hospital to that Three Rivers facility. So it was going to be like towards the end of the 4th, maybe possibly even the early 5th. Okay. And they took her there, where she stayed there until she got out or released on the 11th of June, because that's when she got released. So she was there for about 7 days. Okay. Carolina, sad situation close to my area. A 4-year-old girl reported missing, parents arrested yesterday, responsible for her dad, Chris's body still not located. They did have enough evidence to arrest parents. Interesting. I will definitely look at that, Carolina girl. Thank you. Appreciate that. So now, with the situation with Moore, she's now at the facility of the Three Rivers Mental Facility, right? And welcome into, by the way, Carolina girl. And she's at the facility. Then on the 11th of June, she's released. Okay, she is released on the 11th of June. They're letting her out. So she was there from the 4th, maybe early morning 5th, all the way to the 7th. Okay. Now they let her out. Location is Aiken, South Carolina. Thank you, Carolina girl. Appreciate that. We'll cover that here in a little bit. Cat Go. Good morning, DD and friends. Good to have you, Cat Go. So right now we are on the case of the literally Elena Katherine Moore from South Carolina. So what ends up happening is on the 11th, they end up going ahead and releasing her. And then the question was, when we were talking, the question was, well, where, like who else? Where did she go? Who did she stay with? We didn't know these questions, and they're important because it tells the pattern of, they saw her on the Planet Fitness, they saw her, walking here and there, all this type of thing. They saw her in the camera going into the woods, right behind Lowe's. They saw her at the public grocery store parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? So now this is what the new information is, which I thought was really interesting. So her husband, whether they were separated or not, we don't really know for a fact. Some claim she was, some claims, that she wasn't. But her husband, Brandon Slice, he went to the Lexington Police Department on June the 12th, okay, the day after she was released, okay, to report his wife missing. Now, he actually drove to the police department to report his wife missing. He told the officers she had been released from an undisclosed facility. Now, this is what he's saying. Listen to the words here. He said that she was released from a facility, undisclosed facility, a place that he didn't even know where, but I'm guessing by the way he explained it to the officers, an undisclosed. So he did not know from where, but that she had gotten released on June 11th before 2 p.m. Okay. Before 2 p.m. So sometime after that, um, that's when he reported it. So here's the kicker on that. So he reports it. Then you guys ask the question, well, how did he find out that she was in that facility, right? How did he know she was in that facility? Did they call him when she was taken to the hospital? But obviously they couldn't have called him. You know why? Because he's asking the question that he's telling you. He's telling the cops that she was released from the facility literally at 2 p.m., sometime at 2 p.m., and that it's now the 12th. She was released on the 11th, and it's now the 12th, and he wants to report her missing. Which, once again, he doesn't know where, but someone had to told him where she was at. And if someone had told him where he was at, then he would know what facility she was at, right? So it's kind of makes you wonder, like, who called him and told him where she was at, for him to wait a whole day for her maybe to come home and never show up. You follow me? Are you following me here? I know it's early in the morning, but it's crucial because that's when you start piecing these pieces together, because you got to have that foundation at the beginning. So once again, she is at the facility. She's been released from the facility on the 11th. Okay. She doesn't come home, apparently. He calls. Actually, he doesn't call. He goes to the police department, reports her missing. Okay. And then he does that on the 12th at 2 p.m. So now what we're having is that the facility, they don't have the name of the facility, but we know already it's the Three Rivers Mental Facility or whatnot. See, we don't know who she was staying with. And this is the interesting part. Trying to figure out who she was staying with in between the point of her being released and her gone missing, that's a very interesting part, because nothing is out there of that, where she was at during that gap of time. Good question, April. Good question. Virginia, good morning. Happy Sunday. Right back at you, Virginia. Never get notice about you. I sent it earlier. YouTube should have sent it out. Hope you're having a great day. Having a great day, Virginia. Brenda, I will be up north in the fall, Ohio. in the fall. An amazing good morning. Paige in the house. Good to have you, Paige. Just sent one Devil Dog membership. Thank you so much, Paige. Appreciate you always supporting the channel. Thank you. Thank you very much. And have a great day. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Penny Bean is in the house. Received the gift membership from Paige. Penny Bean is now a Devil Pup investigator. Good to have you, Penny. Awesome. April, hello, Virginia. Hello, Paige. Carolina, hello, Virginia. Brenda, Catco, awesome. Carolina, hello. So you follow where we're at now, okay? The idea that her husband went to the police department to report his wife missing after she was released from the facility, but he doesn't know which facility. He said an unnamed facility, which then you ask the question, well, if you didn't know who called you and told you she got out of the facility, and they did not tell you the name of the facility, you follow me? It seems very suspicious to me as to you would know that she was in one, you would know when she got out, but you would not know where she was at. That just doesn't make sense to me. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. Tegan, some say it was a DV situation. Yes. And maybe she was in a secure location for her safety and why he wasn't told where. And that could be it. The problem is that he's the one that reported her missing, and he told the police that she had just been released on the 11th at 2 p.m. Literally, at 2 p.m., she had been released from the facility, is what he told police, which then asked the question, well, how would he know she was released? How would he know, that she was released at 2 p.m., but not told what facility she was in? You see what I'm saying? And I get you, what you're saying, domestic violence, yes, they won't tell you. But then again, why would they call him? How would he know some of that crucial information, but not the rest? Just something to think about. He maybe wasn't on her emergency contact. Good point, Brenda. But then how would he know by telling the cops that she was in the facility or a facility, an undisclosed facility? Somebody had to tell him, or he had to heard it through the grapevine or read it in the newspaper. I don't know. But he had to have found out that information. You would think he would have known. Virginia, Carol, hello. Hope you're having a great Sunday. Awesome, everybody. Thank you. So now here's the other thing. The facility's name was redacted in the incident report. Okay. They didn't give it, but we know through Sandra, that was her friend that was on the Brian Enton show or the Brian Enton interview. That was her friend for 10 years that said that she had told her she was a fear of her life. Remember, she's the one that said what facility she was in, her friend. So we know what facility that was. And maybe he saw that interview and then he knew at that point what facility. But to say to the report that he didn't know, and we're talking that report came out, okay, and then he comes out and files a report. It just seems very suspicious to me, I guess is the best way to put it. Maybe someone in her family told him, in my opinion. That's very possible, Brenda. April Ortega, she could have signed herself in to protect herself. That is a very good point, April, without a doubt. But Sandra told not only Brian Enton, but told Fox News that Moore had been released from a mental health facility at that time. So he might have heard that interview. He may have watched it. Hey, Jim, welcome in, my friend. Welcome in. He may have watched it, without a doubt. That's a very good point. But here's where it starts getting a little bit more interesting. According to the incident report, Okay, this is the incident report that they took. Someone arranged a taxi for Moore after her release. So when she was released, someone went ahead and arranged her taxi. Now I know who that is because it was the facility. Tegan, she could have sent herself to protect herself. Good morning, everyone, says Jim. Hello, Jim. Paige. Did dog say did or did not sound so? It sounds very suspicious to me. It sounds very suspicious. To answer your question, Paige. Carol, hello, Jim, April, Carol, Brenda. So now there is the facility apparently is the one who called for her to get a taxi to take her back to the Lexington, South Carolina area. They didn't say anything about an address where this cab was taking her, just that they were taking her back to that area, Lexington, South Carolina. Okay, so that's new information because we never knew how she got back, who picked her up, who took her. We never knew that. That's new right there. Okay. Brenda, good to see you. Paige, okay, thanks, dog. You got it. So now the taxi cab transfers her to Lexington, South Carolina area. All right. But here's the interesting part. They didn't give out a name of the driver, nor did they give a name of the cab company due to investigation purposes. So then you know that they don't want anybody to be talking to this person if they gave out the name, who the driver was, and or the company, but they do have that literally information. Double Dog, didn't her friend say she felt like she was in danger? Yes, and I said that earlier. Her friend did state that she had told her she was in fear of her life. That was at a gathering at one of the establishments that they have out there, that she was with her with a bunch of friends. April, her taking a cab tells me she signed herself out. Well, she would have had to, but they said that they released her. According to the report, it says that the facility released her on the 11th. On the 11th, they released her, and they called a cab for her to take her back home, but they didn't say where home was. They just said they took her back to the Lexington, South Carolina area. Jim, April, she did. Okay. So now we know how she got back from the facility. We know it wasn't her husband. We know it wasn't a friend. They actually called a cab. So at this point, being released, no one really knows, as far as her friends and or her husband, how she got back until this news came out. David, I'm wondering, her husband knows more than he's letting on, in my opinion. It really looks that way. It sounds that way. Then again, once again, we go back to, it could be just a coincidence. I don't know, but that is a good point. April says, yes, that is new info. So she is now released. Okay. And you say, what did the driver? Okay. So here's another interesting part. So the cab driver drops her off in the area. Okay. According to the Lexington Police Department, the driver drops her off at a CVS in Lexington. So that CVS, that probably is the one she used to work at. I'm just guessing on that. I don't know that to be fact, but the taxi driver dropped her off at a CVX in Lexington, South Carolina. That may be the one she used to work at. That's me saying that. That's not them saying that. They just said she was dropped off at a CVX. Tegan, Brenda, I think he did. I wonder if she was confiding in someone who was relaying information. Not all friends are trustworthy. That's true, Tegan. Very well, good point. So the driver, taxi cab driver, drops her off at a CVX. I'm assuming, and I'm just assuming, in my opinion, that that's the one she used to work at. Not saying for sure, but just assuming. But they did say she was off at a CVX. That is new information because we didn't know where she went. And the timestamp that they gave for that was somewhere between 4 o'clock p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Okay, 4 o'clock p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Maybe she had a prescription to pick up. Very possible. Very possible. Here's what makes it fishy, April. Here's what makes it fishy. She never came back out to the taxi cab. Okay? She never came out to the taxi cab. So the driver, before he left, he walked in to see where she was at. The driver walked into the CVX and he could not find her in the CVX. Now think about that for a minute. The driver walks into the CVS because she didn't come out of the CVX. And at that point, the driver said he couldn't find her. So he eventually came back out of the CVX, got in his cab, and he left. Tegan, I also wonder if it was a relationship that involved coercive control where the victim goes back to the abuser over and over again because they are very persuasive. That's a good possibility, Tegan. Tegan, saying that is just speculation on my part. No problem. Totally get it. April, oh wow. So now you have the taxi cab driver dropping her off, waiting for her. And you could be right, April. Maybe she was getting a prescription. Maybe this was the CVC she used to work for. Okay. And she goes in there to go in there. They didn't say why she went in there. They just said she went into the CVX. When she did not come out, the taxi cab driver came into the CVS looking for her, and he could not find her. She was gone. Now, I don't know if you all know, but most CVSs don't have a back door, right? You can't just walk out a back door. The front doors, you only enter and exit. Where is her family in all this? Nothing is mentioned about her family at this point. Nothing. So then the question becomes, did they have video footage of her walking in there? Because the taxi cab driver said she walked into a CVS. He dropped her off. He waited there for her to come back out. She never came back out. The taxi cab driver says that he went in, did not see her, so he came back out to his taxi and he left. Okay. Now the kicker here is that no, he didn't see her come out of the CVS. And so there is no other back door, right? There's no back door. There's only that front entrance. And in most CVSs that I've ever been into, there's only one front door. You come in and you go out. Paige says, so maybe the taxi driver was the last person to see her live. It would for sure possibly be, no doubt. That's a very good possibility. Well said, Paige. Marianne, good morning, all. Good to have you, Marianne. Brenda, Devil, maybe she was in the ladies' bathroom and he didn't see her. Yeah, it's very possible. But if he goes in, now this is just me, okay? Maybe I'm looking in from the lens of law enforcement, all right? But let's just say that I am a taxi driver and I go in and I'm looking for her going, do I need to wait? What's going on? Or she told me to wait. Just throwing that out there. I go in as a taxi driver. I look for her. I can't find her anywhere. Well, the first thing I'm going to think is she's probably in the restroom. So I'm going to go knock in the women's restroom and say, hey, this is a taxi. You still need me to stay? Are you there? And she's going to either say, oh, go ahead and go, or she's going to not say nothing. Follow me? So that tells me that if he's going in, if he's taking the time, for the taxi driver has taken the time to actually go in the facility of CVS, he's probably going to make sure that she's not, A, not in there, and B, he's probably going to tell himself, if I'm going in all the way into CVS, I'm probably just going to knock on the door and go, hey, are you in there? I'm getting ready to leave. I got to go. Do you need a ride? Are you done? That type of thing. You would think that would make common sense to me, because it wouldn't explain that he just walked in CVS, looked around, didn't see her, and said, okay, I'm leaving. That doesn't seem logical. If he took the time to actually get out, knowing she just came out of that facility, and he took the time to get out and go in there, he's probably going to take the time, in my opinion, to knock on the women's bathroom, or even the men's, and say, hey, are you in there? I got to go. Are you wanting me to stay or leave? She apparently doesn't say anything. He doesn't hear her, doesn't see her. So he decides just to leave, and he leaves. So that's where we're at. That's the interesting part, because she couldn't have just walked out the front door, because he would have seen her. Marianne and Cicely, says April. Good to have you, Cicely. Welcome in. Carolina, I worked for CVS Pharmacy for 8 years. Only one back door is for deliveries. Yeah, that's usually how it works. You only have one back door for either an emergency exit or literally for delivery people. You can't use that door, because then the alarm system will go off. You know, Carol, good point there, Carolina girl. Carol, hello, Cicely, Marianne. Was the CVS she worked at, or maybe she went out to the warehouse door? Well, I don't think they have a warehouse door. Um, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I think it was. I think it could have been this. She would have felt more comfortable going to the CVC that she worked at, because we know she did work at a CVS store, right? So she would have went probably there. She would have known to say, "Hey, take me there." And if it was, as April said, to get her, or someone said, to get her medications, then that would explain why she went there, right? The fact that she didn't come out, and the fact that the cab driver walked in to look for her and did not find her, did not see her, I would suspect that he wouldn't just walk right out. He would have knocked on the door and said, hey, do you need me to stay? I got to go, that type of deal. That would make sense, because if he's taking the time to go in there, it's because he wants to know where she's at, if she needs to stay or go. Carol, hello, Cicely. Marianne was at the CV work. April, why wouldn't he ask the cashier if they saw her? I don't know. He might have. He might have said, but if you, a lot of times when you go in these drugstores, right, CVS or wherever, Kroger, pharmacy, or Walmart pharmacy, or whatever, a lot of times in these smaller like CVSs, you'll have that same person who's working at the register at the same person who's stocking the shelves or doing multiple different job and functions, right? That happens quite a bit, because I've been to the CVS in our area, and they're always not at the register. They're just at the checkout, or they're at the stocking the shelves and putting product out and whatnot. They're always doing something. They're not at the register most of the time. So that's probably why he probably didn't see anybody at the cash register. I'm just throwing that out there. It's a possibility. Then again, maybe he did find somebody and ask, hey, did you see so-and-so come in? Did you see anybody come in here, with this, that, or the other? And they said no. They probably said no. I don't know. But we know he walked in there. We know he dropped her off there. That's the main point. And we know that he went in there to look for her, and she wasn't there. AJ, welcome in, AJ. Good morning, Didi and Chad. Brenda, April, I was just thinking the same thing. AJ, good morning. Marianne, good morning, AJ. Marianne, AJ, you kept me up too late, laughing out loud. Carol, maybe she knew someone in there and they were hiding her from someone. Now, that's a good point, Carol, because that's one of the things that I think could have happened. If this was not so much for that reason, but is it possible that this is the CVS where she worked at, and when she walked in, someone said, "Oh my God, I heard that you was I heard you were sick or something. Are you doing okay?"
And yeah, because she worked there, said, "Oh yeah, come on in here." Now I'm not sure a pharmacy would have let anybody, if you don't work there, go to the back, but maybe they said, "Come on back here. Let's talk." And then they talked, and she probably told whatever to her friends, because she had to have friends there. You would think, right, that worked there. So that's a very good possibility, Carol. That's a really good possibility. But I think it didn't have anything really to do with hiding her from anybody. I think it was, and that could have been, maybe she was afraid somebody would walk in and notice her. That is true. That's a possibility. It's a good possibility. But I think it had more to do with somebody saying, "Hey, how are you been? I hope you're doing good." And they started talking, and she took her to a different room or something where they could have a conversation. It's very possible, you know. But that's the odd thing in this whole ordeal, is that there's not those specifics. So you got to kind of try to use your mind to try to figure out what the hell really happened, what took place, you know. The Jersey lady's in the house. Good to have you, Jersey lady. Oh, you need to go to England and to Ireland, Scotland, and Wales too. You will really enjoy it. Maybe one day we'll head that way. No doubt about it, the Jersey lady. Thank you so much. AJ, Marianne, laughing out loud. AJ, April, I just had a thought. What if she had a co-worker friend there that may have hit her for whatever That's a possibility. That's a good possibility, April. I'm thinking it's either hiding her in there, so in case somebody walks in and recognizes her, or her husband, or whoever, or somebody took her to the back to talk to her like a friend because she used to work there. It's going to be one of those, probably, in my opinion. Not for sure, but probably. AJ, you were great on panel last night. Thank you. Good job, everybody. April, Jersey lady. Jim, she probably was in the pharmacy talking to pharmacists in their little office in pharmacy. That's what I'm thinking. In my opinion, that's what I'm thinking. And they're asking her, "How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. We heard you were not feeling well, yada yada yada," that type of thing. That would make sense to me. But it could be the other one too. It could be they were someone was taking her to the back because she didn't want anybody to come up and see her, and so they were just basically, because they knew her because she worked there, they said, "Come on back." That's a very good possibility. Carol, thank you, AJ. Carol, Jinx, I had same thought. AJ, Carol, we have to have you on our panel more often. Carol, laughing out loud. April, great minds. So that is the new information. There is a taxi cab driver that literally in, takes her literally in, or drops her off at the CVS. She doesn't come out. He goes in there, doesn't see her, can't find her, so he goes ahead and leaves. He would technically be the last person to see her. Now, there's no tax. They didn't give the name of the taxi driver for obvious reasons, that they would literally, probably everybody would be talking to him, trying to find out, what he saw, what was she like, what was her condition, that's just all that type of thing. Now, there apparently, you would think there was footage. I'm sure they had footage, but the police department doing this case said there was, they didn't say anything about footage, whether they had him on camera, or had her on camera or not. They didn't say nothing. And this literally, when she arrives at the CVS, it's between 4 o'clock p.m. and 6:30 p.m. All right, think about that: 4 o'clock p.m. and 6:30 p.m. April, I missed the panel. We got bad storms. AJ, oh no, April. I hope all is well. So that is the new information. So what is new here? We know she got out for a fact because it's in the report. She got out on the 11th. We know that her husband on the 12th went ahead and went to the police department to report her missing. That's a fact. We know that the cab driver, a cab was called by the facility to take her back to that area. That's a fact. The facility was the one that called the taxi cab. We also know for a fact that the taxi cab took her to CVS, okay, because that's in the report. And we know that she walked in for whatever reasons and didn't come out because that's what the cab driver stated. Now that doesn't mean that last one that the cab driver said he dropped her off there, she went in, he went looking for her, didn't find her, and he left. That doesn't mean that happened, but that's in the report as to what happened. It'd be easy to see with video cameras, so you would know that watching video, seeing the video of her walking in and whatnot, because every pharmacy has videos. We know that the timestamp that she arrived, because of the timestamp on the taxi cab, was 4:00 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., somewhere in that, because the end of that drive, when they looked at it, meaning the investigators, was at 6:30 p.m. That's when he checked out as being done for that time. So somewhere between 4 and 6:30 p.m. If she got out at 2:00 p.m., however it took for the cab to get there, take her drive back, right? Take her to CVS, whatever that time would have been, it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 6:30 p.m. I don't know how far this facility is from the CVS, so it's kind of hard to gauge, but that is a possibility. April. Marianne, I hope they asked the CVS for their camera footage. You would think they did. I mean, I would think they did, Marianne. I would think that they asked for it. I just don't know, but for a fact, because they didn't say anything about it. And that could be because of there's still ongoing investigations on this case. Marianne, I hope they asked the CVS for the cameras. Carol, oh my goodness, April, how sad. AJ, oh my God, April. So that's that. No name on the taxi driver, but that's quite a bit of information, in all honesty. The big thing they're still waiting on this case is the toxicology report. See if she had anything in her system. Remember, they found her just laying there by the side of the road, technically, on that bottom embankment by the woods. And according to the coroner's report, there was no bruises, no lacerations, no cuts, no anything. So that also says and speaks volume. What did she go ahead and, was she put there? Did she just fall over? Was her heart beating so fast when she went into the woods, walked into the woods? Was her heart beating so fast that it just finally gave out? We do know she had some anxiety issues. We know she had some heart issues. We just don't know to what severity. So that's really interesting. They were in the tent. Very sad. Sorry to need to go off topic. No, you're fine. You're fine. So that's what was going on. The interesting part is going to be trying to figure out who the taxi driver company was. Who was the taxi driver? Did he really drop her off at CVS and wait for her? Now, they're going to be able to see that with cameras, right? They're going to be able to see that with cameras. They're going to be able to notice that. They're going to be able to see the time of when he showed up. And they said that the time was between 4 and 6:30 because that was the end of his time that he checked out of there. So it's going to be pretty damn close to that, in my opinion. Makes you think she was put there because of the no bruising. That's what I'm thinking, Marianne, that she was put there because of that. I mean, whatever happened to her had to be done, I would think, probably more internally. Like she either took something, she took some medication, because she would have had her medication at that time, right? She would have had her medication. That could explain why she went ahead and just took all her medications. Could have unalived herself by taking them. That's just that's my opinion. That's not been stated, but it would make sense, because we would ask, well, how would she get any pills? Well, there you go. If she went to the pharmacy, maybe it was to get a prescription, and then she went ahead and took those pills and said, you know what? Maybe after that conversation with the person at the pharmacy, if she had one, maybe it was, she didn't like how that went, and she just said, you know what? I'm done with this all. I'm not dealing with this. And she thought she'd just end everything by taking pills. Eventually, it just made her real drowsy. She ended up walking towards the tree line. She got to that end part where her body just collapsed. That's a very possibility. That's a very damn good possibility. I agree with Marianne. If no camera footage, he never dropped her off. That's a good possibility. That's what I was thinking earlier. And they're going to know that. I mean, I would think that if he never dropped her off, they're going to know, law enforcement, one way or the other, through even other cameras that are right next to the CVS. So they're going to know that. They're going to know whether or not he was there. You know what I mean? And if he wasn't there, they're going to be able to interrogate him to figure out where he went. We may not know that just yet, but that could be another scenario. But being that they said he walked in, couldn't find her, left, would tell me that law enforcement knows he did show up there. They can read the traction of where those cabs go, right? They have like a built-in GPS where and I'm not talking about the telemetrics, I'm talking about literally they have built in to know where these cabs go all over the place. So it is possible that they knew that he did stop there and didn't leave till X amount of time. And when they asked him, he said, yeah, he said, she just never came out. I went in there, didn't see her, you know, ended up leaving. Even if she fails, you would think there would be some kind of mark, any kind of mark, without a doubt. Without a doubt. There would have been something on her or something that was left on her that showed that she really took a spill, took a fall, took a slip or whatever. But to not have anything, to me, and then knowing that she dropped her off at the CVS, and then someone pointed out maybe she was there to get a prescription. Well, it all kind of makes sense. Maybe she underlied herself with her pills. She took them, and then when she walked out, maybe she went into the restroom. Maybe when this person was knocking, she was in the restroom. She was debating what she was going to do. And maybe, she looked in the mirror and said, hey, I'm done. And then the guy leaves. She takes her pills, starts walking out. Body doesn't collapse till she gets to the edge of that place where they found her, and she just laid down, and that was the end of that. That would explain it, how she had no marks and she was there. I don't know if that happened, but that's a very damn good possibility. April, Trudy, Marianne, even if she fell, you would think. I mean, that's going to be my thing. This was probably self-inflicted. Now, then it goes back to why did she do this? Not if she did it, but why? And that would be like, well, who had a hand in her mental state for her to feel like that was the only way out? That's where it becomes very, very tricky. Yes, if she would have just laid down, no marks, I could see that. She's tired. She took her medication, but she took a lot of medication, if you follow my point. And then she said, that's it. She laid down, and that was the end of it. And then she just fell deceased. What it's ironic is the coroner didn't give literally no timestamp as to approximately when she passed. If the coroner would have said she passed probably when they found her body, she's been out for, let's just say, 72 hours or 12 hours or 8 hours or 48 hours, that would indicate how long it would have took medication like that to act, to make her react like that and possibly become unalive. It's very possible. I had a very similar experience, except my my mailman found me and saved me because by calling 911. Interesting page. It's a good point. I mean, that would explain why she had no marks on her. I think that's probably where this is going. But then once again, like I said, it comes back to what caused her to do this, what was going through her mind, what role did maybe someone else have to play in her life. It really just depends. And this may be one of those things that really are hard to solve because there's not that there's not going to be that possibility, there's not going to be that solid clue that's going to say this is what happened to her. You follow me? I mean, I could see this case literally just being an accident, over overdose, or deliberately overdose. I could see that being played out that way because if they find that she had in her system during the toxicology report all these pills, you darn right that's going to say that's how she ended everything. And if that's the case, then how do you really point the finger at anybody? Because then everything becomes once again, just a thought and idea, and in reality, that person's not alive anymore to be able to defend themselves to say, well, this is why I did it. This is how it happened. This is why, you know. In these cases, it's always difficult because there's no answer. And the person who is unalive has no way of telling you what they were feeling. Unless she told somebody in the pharmacy she was going through. I don't know. Marianne, April, I was about to say that. Paige, I had a very similar experience. After my aunt passed away in 2023, my mind sort of stopped. April, I passed out in a phone booth from low blood sugar, dropped, and someone called 911. It's possible. I agree. Wholeheartedly, I agree. Saucy, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Saucy. Good to have you. So, you see what I'm saying? This little bit of information, which is actually quite a bit, literally, really could tell you a story on what happened to her. It may not tell you everything, but it can tell you some things. Annie, is this now? Is this now? This is now. This is live right now. We are live. Paige, welcome in, Annie. Paige, I took all the pills that the psychiatrist hospital sent me home with and woke up 3 days later in my local regular hospital. Wow. April, yes, Annie, we are live. Paige, hi, Saucy. So it does make sense when you think about it, thinking outside the box. I mean, that is pretty damn logical, everybody. She goes there. She's asked to be taken to the pharmacy, probably the one that she knows, maybe the one that she knows, because she knows going to know the address to that probably in her mind, because she used to work there. Goes in there, would make sense she would get her medications without a doubt. Then comes out, literally comes out, doesn't come out, stays in there, takes her pills. The individual taxi cab driver goes in there, doesn't see her, knocks, maybe doesn't hear nothing in the restroom and says, okay, I'm out of here. He leaves, and then all of a sudden, she starts walking out. She goes out. She's seen on camera footages in different places. And then she just lays down, and that's the end of that. What are your all thoughts? Thank you, April, says Annie. Hello, Carol. Hi, Saucy. Carol, Marianne. I'm so overdosed. Annie, did you get a notification? I didn't. Yeah, I put that out there, so they should have notified everybody. But you know how YouTube is. Sometimes they just don't do that. Annie, hi, Carol. No notification page. The taxi even took me home from the second hospital, just like Elena. So see, that is something that happens when you get when you get discharged. That is how they probably do it, and they probably actually that's a pretty smart thing because short of family that knows you're there, they don't want anybody to know that you're leaving or that you are there because maybe it could have something related to health issues and or someone that they were afraid of. That's a very possibility, a very good possibility. So it is possible. It is very possible. Groundsky just woke up. Hello, everybody. Good to have you, Groundsky. Didi, I said, in my opinion, she overdosed. I would say so, Marianne. I would think that would explain a lot of how they found her without any bruising or anything. It makes perfect sense to me. April, hello. Carol, hello, Groundsky. Paige, hi, Groundsky. Marianne, hi to those who just entered. Saucy, hi, Groundsky. Paige, thank God I survived unlike her. Without a doubt, Paige. Carol, I believe she overdosed and put there. Yeah, I don't know if she was. I mean, it's if she overdosed to carry a body and place her there is. I mean, that's hard to do because this is. I don't know. See, this would have been in June. See, it still would have been daylight out there. You know what I mean? It still would have been daylight because, well, depends on how long it took her to get to the other point. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very tricky one. Yeah, the LE has ruled this. Well, no, that was the other case. I'm not sure if they ruled this suspicious or not. I don't think they've said anything on whether this was suspicious or not. But it sure is damn suspicious to me when I look at everything, how it all played out. And I do think it was, like Marion said, I honestly believe that that's probably what happened. You know, that was the end of the road. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It would make perfect sense on her body, no injuries on her body. Did Ellie rule out? They never said, Marion. I think they're waiting for the toxicology report to come back to able to know what exactly was in her body and her system, because they'll be able to tell how many pills did she take or how much dosage does she have in her body, which would indicate how much she had taken and what caused her whole body to shut down. Paige, I never got a diagnosis, but I call it a psychotic break or some sort. Interesting. Thank you, Paige. Carolina Girl Didi, I sent you an email from news conference yesterday concerning the 4-year-old little girl. Thank you so much, Carolina Girl. I'll look at it when we get done with the live. So what do y'all think? Marianne thinks that. I think it's very well could be self-inflicted. It makes sense, perfect sense to me. I'm sure that's exactly how it's going to unfold. Because there's no markings. The only way she could have been alive and not have any marks on her is that, and it fits the whole narrative. Going to a pharmacy, maybe if she picked up. Now I'm sure when the law enforcement went down there to the pharmacy to talk to them about where the cab driver says she dropped her off, I'm sure they either got the footage of it, which is probable, and they talked to the pharmacies that were working that day and said, yeah, she came in, we were talking, and she seemed kind of down, and she was here picking up her prescriptions. I'm not saying that's what she said. I'm just saying that it is very possible that that's how they know where she was at and what was her state of mind. It is very possible. April says, I don't know. I don't know because she said her life was in danger. Yeah, that's the only hiccup right there. And you're right. You're very right on that. And you can't ignore that. No doubt about it. Well said, Carolina girl. But these are just a theory based on the information that we have, based on, the what she was going through and where she had been, that would make sense to me. But it's just an opinion. I don't have no facts like no one. April, I don't know because she said her life was in danger. It's very true, April. Very true. Paige, I even followed through with a psychiatric the entire 3 years that no one day it subsided and I'm me again. Awesome. Marianne, I'm learning that way because of the no marks. That's why I can agree with that. Wholeheartedly, I can agree with that. Paige, I've never ever wanted to pass away, and I never will again because it's terrified of passing away, without a doubt, Paige. April, Marianne, I understand that point too. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they, and even if they do find that she had this in her system, you know, I just find it very difficult for them to try to, like, if anybody is going to be held accountable, if it is medications that's in her system, it's going to be very hard to show that a someone did it to her, or it's going to be very difficult to show that she didn't do it to herself. The idea is that no matter how you look at it, because everybody will have a different story, everybody will have a different spin, everyone will have a different idea. Just saying, well, it was, her husband drove her crazy, or he threatened her, or this or that. At the end of the day, it's going to come out to, what does the evidence show? The evidence showed that she had all these pills in her system. We have no fingerprints on her. We have nothing on her. There's no DNA on her that somebody like forced her to take this medication. Then it may just well be that's exactly what they're going to come up with, in my opinion. April, Marianne, I understand that point. Virginia, I hear zero about this case, says Virginia. It's so sad because it's an important case. It's a young lady who just, you know, for the better lack of words, just went unalive. And for people not to hear it, I mean, it's the same case that we were talking yesterday about, about the three individuals who unalived the mom. It's the same thing. Somebody came on last night, I think it was like Angel Blue Eyes, and said she's from Texas in that area. And she said, I had never even heard of this case. And then she looked it up and was like, wow, very interesting. So there's a lot out there, everybody, that we just don't know, and a lot of people, they're just not, for whatever reasons, they're just not covering it. And he says, I can't say too much about it because I didn't follow the case, but bless her, without a doubt. Well said, Annie. Paige, as always, I only know what I learned from in this channel. Thank you, Paige. Devil Pups. Paige, I learned a lot just this morning from Dog. Thank you, Paige. Appreciate that. Marianne, I was going to ask you that, Didi, even if they find pills in her, how can they tell if someone gave them to her? And I don't think they can, Marianne. Honestly, I don't think. It would have to be, jeez, But even if somebody tried to force it down her, let's say someone forced it down her body. Okay, let's just say hypothetically. All right. Even if they forced it down her body, I mean, she would have a way to try to regurgitate it back up, right? Usually it's by someone literally trying to um, vomit that out and running to the or going to the hospital and having them pump their stomach out, right? So in that aspect, I could see that literally that that would be really the only way if a person really did not want to be alive in that fashion. I just don't know how other way normally that would make sense that it was probably done on her own accord. So it's just going to be hard. It's going to be hard to prove that. You know, that's probably one of the hardest ways to prove if somebody actually did it. If there's not an injection, like a needle mark or something that somebody you know put in her system with the needle, without something having anything like that, and it doesn't seem like that's really the case, then I can't imagine how they're going to be able to put this if it is that she had that medication in her system. April, the Friends interview suspects foul play. The Friends interview suspects foul play. Yeah, I mean, and once again, you could go back and read everything and look at everything, and it could point that maybe the husband or a friend were people that could have done this to her, drove her to do this. Let's just say that they drove her to do that. Let's say someone is able to point how someone drove them to do that. I don't know how they really pin that on somebody without somebody else knowing what that person did, without someone else knowing exactly what he said to her, heard it, saw it, something that can confirm and corroborate what happened. Didi, can you give time of when she got out of the facility? She got out at 2:00 p.m. Um, the cab apparently got there somewhere close to that time of 2 p.m. because it says that his timestamp of getting there was 4:00, and the time that he checked out saying he was done with that ride, was 4:30 p.m. And let me make sure I got that one right, but I think it is. Yeah. So they're saying taxi driver. Okay, they're saying the taxi driver arrived at CVS between 4 and 6:30. That would mean that she had to have gotten out somewhere close to 4, and then the time it took from there to get there. And I don't know what the distance mileage is. I'd have to look at that and break it down. But from the distance mileage of that, it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 6:30 p.m. That's going to be the time they're giving. They're going to be a huge fight if you try to force me to. Yeah, but this was her. I don't think that. I don't know. Something tells me it's not someone forcing her. It's more like someone making her feel like she wants to end everything. And I'm just not sure how they prove that, to be honest, without having some type of needle marks on her body, in between her toes and her, on her arm, where somebody injected her with something. Short of that, and we're gonna know because they're gonna say it. Cause of death will be, an overdose, and the method would be unknown. I mean, did she do it herself? Did she not? That's just hard to prove. Virginia, maybe there is no video because it could have been overridden by the time police were notified. Not much to go on here, but it's a possibility, Virginia. Very good possibility. I do think that they have the timestamps, you remember? They have the timestamps of her walking out last seen when she walked out. We know she didn't Her last scene was not at on the 4th, because that's when she was in the Three Rivers mental ward. She was there, or the mental hospital. She was there for 7 days. When they released her on the 11th. Her husband went into the police department and reported her missing on the 12th. So they released her on the 11th. That makes perfectly sense how that fits. That she got out, and then she had the cab that was called by the facility for her to take her back home. She told the cab to take her to um, Lexington, South Carolina, which they say the cab stopped at the CVS. CVS, she gets in there, goes in there, and somebody pointed out, and it's a very good possibility that she went there to get her prescription, but she never came out. Cab driver goes in there, looks around for her, can't find her, does whatever he does to find her, but cannot find her. He gets back in his cabin. He leaves and he checks out at 6:30. So somewhere between that time and that time is when he last saw her. Virginia, maybe there is no video because it could have been April. DD coverage of this case is amazing. We learn new info here. It's just mind-boggling how this worked and how this works. Mind-boggling in the sense that trying to just put yourself in those shoes, like how could this have happened? And I'm sorry, the way it's looking, it's very possibly, without having the toxicology report in front of me, I would say it very much looks like it could have been self-inflicted. And was somebody causing this pain? Probably, because we saw the letters that she wrote on her Instagram. We knew how she was feeling. We knew she was so upset at whoever she was addressing those letters to on Instagram. We know that she was, very disgusted with this individual, broke it off with this individual, and etc. Blamed him for everything. So whoever him is that she was, we think we know who she was talking about, but we don't know that for a fact. And that's the part that you just can't, or have a hard time proving that he caused her to do this. You know what I mean? Or whoever that person was that she was talking about in her letters, and not her letters, but in her writing that she had on her Instagram account. Marianne says, definitely April. April, agree 100%, says Kyle Hernandez, girl. Virginia, 4 to 6:30, that's large time span. Yeah, but I mean, they know really the time of when she got to CVS is the time that really is the most important. If they can establish when she got to CVS, and then look at the time difference between him arriving and the time, or the time they arrived to the time where she went missing or went unalived. And see, that's what the coroner is so important for. The coroner is the one that gives you that, that information as to approximately, 4 hours, 2 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. They're the ones that tell you how long that body's been sitting there. Rigor mortis starts sitting in after X amount of time. The body starts doing certain things, it's going through certain changes, after a certain time. It reaches a certain point at a certain time. Everything's going to come up to exactly, for the most part, pretty spot on, for the most part. The key is what drove her to that. That's going to be the big issue. And I don't know if they can prove that or not, if in fact it is something like that. Chris says, Carol, you killed it last night. Great job. April, Chris. Chris is in the house. Hello, all. How you doing, Chris? Good to have you. Marianne, good morning, Chris. Carol, thanks, Chris. Good morning, all. April, how long was the walk from CVS to where they found her? Well, you're going from CVS. That's a good question. It's a very good question. That's a very good question. I am not sure. Let me ask. How long of distance or when they found her from CVS to where they found her body was it? Her body was discovered 6 days after her disappearance, June 17th, at approximately 2:48 p.m. She was officially identified by the Lexington coroner 2 days later on the 19th. That's when the coroner identified her. The distance where she was dropped off to where she was found included they say it's about 1.5 to 2 miles away. So 1.5 to 2 miles away is how far it is in between. So April, 1.5 to 2 miles away from CVS to the place where they found her. It's really, it's not a, it's probably, I would say, on a just a normal walk, not a speed walk, but a normal walk, you're probably looking at 1 mile, probably about 15, 20 minutes, maybe. And if she was really lethargic and was really walking slow, I think somebody would have noticed that, but you're probably looking at 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. I could see that somewhere around there. And I'm using how long it takes for people to run a mile on the average. I could see something like that. If she walked, that is correct. If she walked, but there's no signs that she was picked up by anybody other than she was dropped off by the cab, and then the cab went in and the cab driver checked and couldn't find her and he left. Virginia, oh, okay, we get a little here, then a little there. Has been a need conference lately. AJ, good morning, Chris. Marianne, the coffee, AJ. Chris, I told Carol the same. We have a new star. April, okay, that's not a real far walk. It's not, April. It's not a far walk at all. Absolutely about 20 minutes, I would say. And that's at a slow pace, a lethargic pace, a pace if you took your medication inside the CVS and you took it all there and you started walking, could very well by the time you get to that end point, it's going to be probably 20, 25 minutes at a slow pace. That's probably what we're looking at. I just don't see anything. Chris, what's your thoughts on this? As far as what do you think? You think that this is self inflicted? I don't know how long you've been in here to hear what was going on. Do you think this has been a self inflicted thing, or do you think this was something nefarious, or do you think it was something somebody caused her, pushed her in that type of fashion, as pushed her mental state to the point where she felt this was the only way to get out of everything and not leave any marks? What's your take? What's your take, everybody? Let me hear what you guys got to say. A twist, what if she was to meet someone there? It's a possibility. But she didn't have her phone, so she couldn't have called from the facility because she didn't have her phone unless they had a payphone, because it was the facility who called the cab. So no, that's interesting. I mean, I think it's staring right in front of us. A twist. What if she was to meet someone there? Marianne, I'm picturing the walk being as far when JLR walked to Nancy's house. Chris McLaughlin, AJ, good morning. Did you hear the question, Chris? What do you think? What's your thought? Did you listen? Did you? I don't know how long you've been in here, but did you? What is your take? What is all your takes for that matter? What is all your takes as far as does it sound like it's very plausible? I don't know. I think it is. I think just not having all the facts, not having the toxology report, in my opinion, I could see that fitting the narrative, to be honest. I'm not saying it does, just saying, in my opinion, it does fit the narrative. Cab picks her up, called by the facility, takes her in, takes her, drops her off at the CVS. Why would she go to the CVS? She worked there probably to pick up her prescription because they would have probably gave her a prescription. I mean, it just makes perfect sense to me. Could have called from CVS. I'm just throwing opinion around. I don't believe an overdose because of fear of her life. And that's possible. I mean, that's a good point, April. That's a good point. But the time from that where she said that was when she was in that, I think, restaurant or whatnot, and during that time. So I'm looking at that time when she told Sandra that, and then the time that has passed, and then she ends up going to this mental ward or mental facility. I wonder if that fear just said to her, "It's not worth it." The unknown, not waiting. I don't know. It's a very interesting case because I just don't think they're going to find anybody. And if it deals with her taking the medication, then I don't think they're going to find anybody at fault. I just don't. There's not going to be enough evidence, in my opinion, if it is an overdose. If that's what the toxicology report says, I just don't see how they find anybody short of someone saw her do it or told her. Mannix, hey, Devil Pups, good morning. Been listening. Thank you, Mannix. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And yeah, she could have called from the CVX. It's very possible. Very, very possible. Because she did work there, so they would have trusted her to come back, I would think. Although I'm not sure it's something that they practice, where they let people come into the back, but it's very possible. Marianne says, hi, Mannix. That's really all I could see in this case so far. April, I am confused. Was this the husband that blood and boots were found in another case? That's a good question. I think that might have been another case. I'm not sure, but I think that would have been another case. Well, no, I think it was this case that he had. I think it was this case that he had mud on his boots, and we were thinking maybe the woods, but it wasn't like a big old woods. It was just a tree line. As far as the the blood, I don't remember hearing about blood, to be honest. And the house was untouched. They don't get into the house much. They don't get into the house that much, April, as far as talking about like how the house was. The police don't have anything mentioned about that. I'm sure they probably, when they went and talked to him, to the husband, they probably, kind of looked around and stuff. But I'm sure that would be within the scope, but I'm not sure. They didn't talk about it, so I'm not sure how much that really played in, to be honest. Carol, hello, Manix. Manix, in my opinion, watch the MK Ultra hearing. Sometime something happened to her at the rehab center related to the ongoing MK Ultra program. I said it laughing out loud. Okay, we'll check that out. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything more. It was a spot of blood on muddy boots, but the case get mixed up in my head. I'm not sure, April. I'm not really sure. I'm going to say that's probably a different case, but look, I'd be lying if I told you. I just don't remember that topic being of the conversation of this case, but it could have been. I just don't remember it, but it very well could have been. It's a good point if it happened like that. My thing is, I'm with Marianne. I think that right when she laid down, she just called it. She just ended everything because there was no marks on her body. There was nothing there. Manic says best mods ever in super chat. The Justice Warrior DD. Thank you so much, Manic. Appreciate you. Marianne, I remember hearing that too, April. Yeah, I just don't know what was, but once again, you go to the blood. There was nothing found on her. No blood, no nothing, no scratches, no marks, no bruising. I'm not sure where the blood would play a role in that. You would think that it would play a role if it had something to do with like a cut somewhere or bloody nose or something. You can always say, well, they could have cleaned her up. Yeah, that's all. I think that's thinking too far outside the box on all these. I think if you just go with what you have, the fact is she was at the facility. She left the facility, was taken by a cab that the facility called. That's a fact. She went back. It took her, the cab was instructed to take her back to the Lexington, South Carolina, where she was. That's a fact. She stopped. The law enforcement was able to confirm that they stopped at CVS, and then she never came out. The driver says he went in there. That's not a fact, but I'm sure that's identifiable by the cameras. So then she comes out when the cab driver leaves. She eventually comes out, or I don't know if she comes out, but she had to get out to get to the wood area. At some point, she gets out, and they find her where she's at, and that's a fact. So just with those things, we don't know what she went in for CVS. We don't know what was the reasoning. If they gave her a prescription, they're not probably going to say something about it, but that would make sense to me. That would make sense. But she had no injuries, blood, none, no injuries, no nothing. She had nothing on her body, no marks. Like she just fell down asleep. Like she laid down and went to sleep and never woke up. Virginia, I don't know enough to render an opinion. Well said, Virginia. Well said. April Carol, but he could have got scratched in the woods moving her body, is why I'm wondering. Same case, but I don't know. That's interesting. Manex, a three-letter agency can do this to a person, and we will never know in this case. Her autopsy could be altered. I think if it comes to that point, I mean, if whatever gets to that point, in my opinion, honestly, honestly, Max, if it ever got to that point, then we would never really believe anything that happens because everything could be altered. You know what I mean? I mean, in fairness, looking at that, if that's the approach we would take, in my opinion, my gosh, that would be like, what could we ever really solve and not solve? You know what I mean? It's a lot there. So I don't know how that would. Yeah, I just think the actual intake of what she became unalive due to, whether it was prescriptions or not, or whether it was medication or whether it was something else, we know whatever did it to her left her, for a better lack of words, in a pristine condition. In other words, laying down, no marks, no bruises, no nothing. Bama cat is in the house. Was she in the woods or on the sidewalk where she wouldn't be walking? She was on the side of the embankment, right below the bridge that was on the top. There was a little bridge, and she was on the embankment all the way down about, I think it was 8 to 10 feet down by the water next to the woods. That's what they had said where they found her. It wasn't technically in the woods. It was really next to the the embankment, but going all the way to the bottom of the bridge. It was a small bridge. It wasn't a big one. 8 to 10 feet down, laying right by the water, laying right by the water. 8 to 10 feet down, right by the water, right next to the tree line. So it really wasn't in the trees. I thought it was talked about when we covered her husband a few days ago. Yeah, I'm not sure, April. To be honest, I'd have to go back and look. I don't think so, but it is possible, and we might have covered that. We might have covered that. We might have covered that. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything on the press conversation. I'm not seeing anything. Because we all suspected she was taking some medication. We just didn't really have that information. This happened in my family and altered autopsy, years of not knowing, etc. I am just saying this, it can happen. Well, no, it's true, man. It's true. It very well could happen. Anything's possible, no doubt. No doubt. And it's good. That's a good point. I mean, it very well could have happened that way. And I know things in the past, people have done, shady stuff like altering different theories and why, because they wanted to fit a certain narrative. I totally agree with that. I just don't know where this really fits, to be honest, other than it was self inflicted. This is just what I'm coming back to. Bama said, I would think if she passed walking, she wouldn't have been a walk away. Yeah, I mean, her husband reported her on the 12th. She arrived there sometime between 4 and 6:30 p.m. at the CVX p.m. So sometime between 6:30 p.m. till they found her body, which was on the 17th. That would be 5 days later. 4 to 5 days later, once again, you think the autopsy would have said approximately how long she was alive before she wasn't. Oh no, April, you're right, 100%. If you're right, 100%. If he had muddy boots, it would make perfect sense, without a doubt, no doubt about it. I just trying to remember if that was this case or another case. But no, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. If he had mud on his boots, it would explain the woods. I do remember us talking about somebody with boots in like would have had boots and woods and whatnot. I don't know if it was this one or if it was the Cashlin McCashlin case where they found his boots. They had mud on them, or his boots, his belt, and a shirt and a holster, or if it was the husband of Casillas, who we did a thing on, or one of the other scientists who became unalive in the woods, and somebody had boots in the woods and they were muddy. I just can't remember, to be honest. I'm not sure. April, Diddy, no worries. Manex, how long till Tox comes back? They say usually it's about a 6 to 8 week time period. So we're looking at probably 6 to 8 weeks from the time when they sent us off. Now, the only difference is that they do their testing, a lot of their testing there. They have a facility there right in that same town that they can do testing. So it could go a little bit quicker, just not really sure. I did not read or hear blood on boots in this case, but I will research it, says Chris. Thank you, Chris. She wasn't in a good relationship and had moved out, and we know that is a dangerous time for a woman. It is, Bama. It is. It is. Bible from A to Z. Red, white, and blue hearts. Good to have you, Bible. Yeah, appreciate that, Chris. Let me ask this. Hang on a second. Let me see. Let me see if there's anything I can ask. Was there ever any mud on the boots in the from the husband or anyone in the Elena Moore case? Yeah, they said that there was. It says here when I asked, it says no law enforcement has never released any information regarding mud on the boots or clothing of Alina Moore's husband, Brandon Slice, or anyone else involved in the case. So I'm going to have to say probably not this case. No official police records of forensics finding reference to mud on anyone's footwear or evidence. Yeah, they're saying no sounds of foul play in this case. I'll go back and watch Alina's husband coverage. We did just to rule out or confirm another case. No worries. Thank you, April. Appreciate that. Marianne, I believe it was another case. April, oh, thanks for checking, DD. You got it. You got it. No worries. I don't know why I didn't just do that the first place. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like this is going to be something of one of those things that really is just, I don't know, for something just telling me that it's going to be something that they're going to have a hard time figuring out. Bama Cat says, how do they know that it took days to find her? I'm sure he changed clothes and boots from her going missing and being found. Bama Cat, how do they know that it took days to find her? Well, the husband reported her missing. She got out on the 11th of June, right? She got out on the 11th of June from the facility. That's been documented. She got to the CVC in a cab that the facility called. The last time they have her in that CVS is 6:30 p.m. because that's when the driver finally left and that ride was completed. So it's going to be sometime after that time of 6:30 p.m. on the 11th, and the husband called on the 12th. So it's going to be sometime after she left that facility and wound up being at that wood line. They didn't find her body till the 17th. So the time frame is going to be 4 or 5 days, somewhere in there, or close to it. Maybe the slice guy, the pepperoni slice guy, says Marianne. Bama, how do they know he didn't have mud on him? Well, because they investigated it, Bama Cat. They investigated the case. They investigated it. If they had blood or mud or anything, I'm sure that would have been brought up too. But then they never talked about that. And they might. I mean, maybe he does. I don't know. But according to the case, it doesn't say anything about that. Yeah, kind of like, was it 6 days? It was somewhere in there. Just don't know the exact time that she literally went missing, from the time of 6:30 p.m. on the 11th to being found on the 7th. You know what I mean? Um, it would be about 5+ days, hours, 5 and some hours, but not really sure exactly pinning it down to the nitty gritty. Bama Cat, they investigated days later. Well, yeah, because that's when they found the body. They couldn't investigate. They couldn't really process the the body until they found it. Yeah, it could very well be Bama Cat. We don't know. I just know that they didn't mention anything on mud or blood or anything on his boots. That's the only thing I can say. I don't know if they had some, if he had it or he didn't. Do not know. Marianne, no, there was a case with a guy named Slice. There was a case with a guy named Slice. April, so she was only a short distance and took 6 days to find her. Well, that was the ironic thing, April. We were saying that how they last saw her, they said, on the camera, the surveillance camera behind Lowe's, going into the woods, right? And then that was the question we were asking. Well, why? How could they have not found her sooner? If they found her, if they reported her missing on the 12th, so that's when they started looking for her. How could they have not found her, and knowing that was the last place she was at? That's the one question we were asking. Like, why? Why did it take so long when she was there the whole time? Yeah, that's what we have asked that question when we were first jumping into this case. Carolina, I'm confused though. She went to the gym and last seen by the Publix. She went by the Publix. Once again, it depends on who is what story you're following from who, because and you're right, she was at the outside parking lot of Publix, but then they said they had surveillance of her going behind the Lowe's, and there was a surveillance camera showing her walking into the woods, and that was the last time she was seen. But then on Ashley Banfield, she said the last time she was seen was in Planet Fitness. And then if you go to, I'm sure someone else, they'll say the Publix parking lot. It's there's Yeah. There's so many different little things like that. But I think at the end of the day, probably the wood line would make sense to me because that's where they ended up finding her, outside the wood line by that, under that bridge, drop off the embankment down at the bottom by the tree line. It's the only thing I can make sense. Guys, it could be another case with the money booze. Did checked it? It's not this case. Carolina, okay, sorry, I didn't hear about Lowe's camera. Yeah, they had it in the back. There's a surveillance camera in the back, and they said she went from Planet Fitness to the public grocery store, and then from the public grocery store, she continued to walk down until the surveillance camera caught her on the Lowe's surveillance camera on the back end, caught her going into the woods. Yeah, CVS was never even mentioned, to be honest. CVS wasn't even mentioned, and other than that she worked there at one time. Now we're finding out that the taxi cab actually took her to the CVX. You know what I mean? We're now finding out that the CVX, the cab, after she got out of the facility, which we didn't know when she got out of the facility and how she got back, but now we know how she got back because the facility called a taxi cab. So that was one of the questions that was answered, And then she went to the CVX. Now, where I'm assuming it was the one she worked at because she would know the address there. So she would have said, yeah, called it into that facility or to that CVS. It could have been any facility for that matter, or any CVX for that matter. I'm just saying that it would make sense that she would call something that she knew, because she would have to tell them, which CVX do you want? I don't know how many are in Lexington, but that would be my guess. But that wasn't even mentioned in anything of the discussion until just now. That was just mentioned now because that report just came out from the report from the police. So it's very interesting to see how this all plays out. I'm not really sure. And the fact of the matter is, you know what? We could all be wrong, no doubt about it. We could all be wrong. And maybe it was something more sinister. Maybe it was something more planned methodically. I mean, here, up until this information come out, we were thinking something dealing with Molly, right? Something dealing with Molly, something dealing with back in the past, right? That she could have been overdosed or somebody could have put something in her water. So that speaks volume, in all honesty, because it could have been something that I was thinking maybe when she was working out at Planet Fitness. They said she worked out for 2 hours, came out, talked to the front desk people, left there, went down to the Publix parking lot. And then it was reported later that there was a guy she was arguing with. Somebody had stated that. And then she left there, went towards the tree line, and they only know that because she passed right by a Lowe's from the backside that got her surveillance camera on her. So yeah, it could be half dozen things, no doubt. But that's where I'm leaning at anyway. That's where I'm going with this case. Very interesting case. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of issues there of trying to figure it out. My whole thing on this is I just don't know how they're going to put the husband, tie him into this. If it was, when the toxicology report comes back, if it was something dealing with too much medicine in her system, for sort of lack of speak, too much, an overdose, for a better lack of words. If it was that, it's going to be interesting to find out, what was in her system. And if that's what they determine caused her death, it's just going to be hard to try to figure out, how do you pin that on somebody? You know what I mean? how do you go ahead and put that in correlation with somebody she knew? You know what I mean? It's just going to be very interesting, in my opinion. It can be done. You're going to have some really concrete type of evidence. Mannix. Also, I would be curious about medication prescribed or street drugs. Very possible. Yeah, very. I mean, that's very possible. It's a good point. It's a very good point. If it wasn't her picking up a prescription, maybe she was able to get some medication or some type of pills that she just, so many things. But if we go with what we have, we don't know that that's what she got was the medication. We don't know that she got medication from CVS. We assume she did, but that was never stated that she went to CVS to get medication, right? That was never put in there in the report from the police. They just said she went into CVS, never came back out. The taxi cab driver went back in there to find out what's taking long or whatever. She never came. She never came out, and he never saw her leave. So then, once he couldn't find her, he said, "Well, he just checked out of that call, and that was at 6:30. He checked out of the call. So, you know, it's no telling. It's no telling." I wonder why the coverage of her if suspected suicide. Well, I mean, we know she was taking medicines in the past, right? We know she was dealing with a lot of anxiety, and according to Sandra, her friend, and others, she was going through some. She had some heart issues or heart problems or something to that effect, and high anxiety, and so depression. Some people even mentioned some of the stories even mentioned depression. Now, if that's the case, we know she was on medication. That would explain why she was taken from the hospital to the Three Rivers facility, the mental facility. She checked herself in, and then she was released. They said she didn't check herself out. She was released on the 11th. She was called. The facility called a taxi cab to take her back to Lexington, South Carolina. At which point she had the cab stop at CVS. Now you ask the question, why? Did she want a pack of bubble gum? Did she want some pop? Was she hungry for chips? I don't know. That's the question. We don't. They never said why she went in there. They just said she went in there. Taxi cab driver went in following her. So the idea is that she went there to get her prescription filled. Probably that the facility gave her a prescription. Not sure they did. I'm just saying it's possible. It makes sense, but we don't know if that's exactly what happened. Bible, Mannix, a typical sudden death is possible ESP with antipsychotics. Well said, Mannix. Bible, Mannix, that's where I'm leading. Yeah, it's very interesting, everybody. This is a very interesting case. Gronsky, I just looked it up. A half mile from PI, from PF to Publix. Yeah, but yeah, that is true. It's only a half mile there, but from where she was found, which was at the wood line, to CVS, that was what did I say, 1.5 miles? I think I said 1.5 miles or something like that. Mannix, Bible, remember Resperdal, people having the above events? That's possible. It's very possible. Yeah. I think at this point with this case is we're just waiting for the toxology report. The new information that was brought in was we know now how she got home. We never knew, well, how she got back to Lexington. We never knew that until we had this news to come out. Okay, we knew how she did it. The facility called her a cab. We know that now. We didn't know that before. We didn't know that the cab stopped at CVS because it never said anything about that. Now the report is saying they stopped at CVS. We know that. We don't know why they stopped at CVS, but we know they stopped there because that's what the report says, the police report. And we also know that she never came out of CVS. We know that because the report states that the driver went in there to look for her, could not find her, came back out and left. At that, he ended the call. That we know. So from that point, we really don't know anything because that's what they talked about in the new information that was found. Where she was found a walking trail. Just curious. I don't not. Let me ask. I don't remember. Um, I don't think it was a walking area only because I remember them saying. I remember that detective, that's the private investigator, saying that this was not somewhere where people would go walking because it was more businesses than anything. But let me ask: is the place where Elena Moore was found, was that a walking trail of some sort? No, there were the area where Elena Moore was found was not a walking trail or recreational path. Her body was recovered from a heavy, undeveloped woods located at the perimeter of Lakeside Middle School at 455 Old Cherokee Road. The environment, see, this is what throws me off because they're saying on one hand, they were saying the embankment by the ravine, by the water, and then this is saying the investigators described the site as a thick brush, heavy woods rather than a maintained park or public trail. Local residents noted that finding a person in those specific woods was highly unusual for the safe suburban town. How she got there, enforcement expanded their grid search to a particular patch of woods after a citizen tip came in. A citizen tip, that's interesting. After a citizen tip came in, was that her husband? A local resident reported seeing Elena walking directly off the road straight into the tree line on the night she disappeared. Because it was rough, heavy wooded terrain, police and fire personnel had to physically comb through the brush and type grid information alongside special canine and drone units. Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't, I'm trying to think like Al says, good morning, everyone. Really hate late, but I'm here listening. Thank you so much, Al. Thank you for being here. Listen here while driving. Things should settle down, but today, sending love and hope of all and doing well. Thank you, Al. Be safe. Thank you so much. Making you think today, Didi. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure like what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and what fits and what doesn't fit. Hello, Carol, Bible, Marianne, and April. Hello. I wish that like I said, I think that really the big thing is waiting for that taxology report. That's going to be the big enchilada, I think. When we get that, we're going to get everything else. Until that, we're only surmising by the little bit of information that we do have now, but it's not a lot. That's to say it mildly. It's not a lot. So that'll be interesting to see what happens. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So that's all we have. We don't have anything else. Going back now, I want to jump over to the Joanna case real quick. On that one, we do got a couple of other names that were given by the hikers' names. Remember how before they kept everything quiet? They kept everything. They weren't giving anything out on the Johanna Ruth Shields case in. All right, I'm back in to see if it got any better. See if it got any better. I am back on live, everybody. Can you guys hear me? You hear me okay? Do you guys hear me okay? All right, all right. Bible says thumbs up. Good deal. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened. Must have had a glitch in the Wi-Fi or something. Tegan, we hear you over and out. Thank you so much, Tegan. Bible sounds good. Thank you. Manex, I hear you and see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. L, can hear you now. Thank you, L. Appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if you got my thing, Chris, but if you want to do something later, we can at 5. We can do something at 5. We can maybe talk about doing a whole show of this with the audio and whatnot. That would be good if you wanted to do that, or we can go on something else. Thank you, El. Appreciate that. So yeah, that's what we got. That's where we're at. That's the situation we're dealing with. You know, we're dealing with that little bit of trying to figure out how this could have all played out. And yeah, I know it. Look, I think it's important to think outside the box. I also think and know that literally the idea of the information we have, we got more information for sure that came out. We know the information that has come out. We know what is there. You know what I mean? We get it. We hear, we see, we read the information that is there. So it's not like we don't have a lot. We just don't have that missing piece of the toxology report. That's what's going to speak volume, in my opinion. That will speak volume when we get that toxicology report. Like all the cases, right, that we have been doing, it seems like many of them are requiring us to have that to be able to fill in that blank, to be able to speak volume, you know what I mean, in what we have. But it's going to take literally, time to get that because that's the only thing that's missing in all reality. That is the only thing that's missing is that damn toxology report. And not just in this case, but in the Kinney case, Kinney from North Carolina, or from Kentucky, we talking about the case dealing in Carlsbad, California, with the Joanna Ruth Shields case. Everything is about the toxology report. The Nancy Guthrie case, everything's about the toxology report. And in the Nancy, we're waiting for the DNA report. So it's like Jesus, it's with that hair follicle without that root. And that thing is going to take, I'd take 6 months to a year before we get any information. You know what I mean? So it's just, there's so much out there, but yet the little things that would literally make more sense, that would actually piece that puzzle together, we don't have that. And that's the problem. We don't have that little piece that would make everything make sense. Marianne, toxicology or the DNA in the cases, without a doubt. Carol says, okay, we're back. I had to close out and come back in. Thank you, Carol. But you see what I'm saying? That's what we're looking at. We don't have that little nugget. But that little nugget is so crucial in just about every case we have covered because it opens the door to the possibilities of where else this is going. It's so frustrated. It says, man, X, waiting on the reports if we can't see them, without a doubt. We can talk about them. It's almost like you can get everything out there to get everything prepped, to get everything, have everything on hand, right? To literally have everything on hand. And then when that report comes out, then everything will make sense or should make sense to a certain extent. I'm just afraid in this case with Elena, if it is something of an overdose or her taking her own life, becoming unalive, it's just going to be hard. I'm trying to figure out how they're going to be able to pin this on somebody that caused her to do this, because that's really what you're looking at. What was the cause and effect? What caused her to do that? Feels she had to do this. After 2 hours, he usually goes blank and recharges. Can you guys hear me now? You guys shouldn't hear me now. Can you hear me? Yes, you're good. Laughing. Okay. So yeah, that's how it works. I mean, that's just how it is. So that's where we're at, everybody. Then we might have to FOIA the reports and pay big money for them. Let's not think of that right now. Carol says yes. The idea is going to be interesting to see what exactly they say. Once again, everybody, we're just trying to put into context what we do have and seeing it make sense if we're able to. But that's not to say that we're going to have all that information that we really need. So at least we're trying to figure it out, right? At least we're trying to figure it out. But we definitely, yes, absolutely, El. We're just trying to connect the dots. And if it makes sense connecting the dots, then even more power to it. If it doesn't make sense, okay, well, now we know we got to do something, right? I heard Chris say something about maybe do a expanded with videos and whatnot and charts on this case. I said to him, April, maybe we could do it at 5 if you wanted to do it at 5. I didn't hear anything back from him. Did you guys hear anything back? Manex is getting out of hand trying to get this info. It really is, Manex, without a doubt. April, did he respond back to what I said or no? I don't know if Chris, you still in here? If you are in here, do you want to do something at 5 or no about this case with videos and everything else? Growski, I am listening, but do not feel well being sting. Oh, hope you feel better, Growski. Not yet, DD. Is that what he's saying is not yet? It definitely can get frustrating in times, Max, at times. Yeah. Chris says it would be better if we could do it tomorrow at some point because I'm in a little tough for time today. You got it. We'll do it tomorrow then. Tomorrow at 5. Or if you get off, if you're gonna be home, we'll do it at 5 or 6, preferably 5. But let me know. Let me know. We can do it tomorrow at 5. But that's where we're at. Sounds good, Chris. So that's where we're at with everything. We're trying to just figure it out, trying to understand it better. And without that information, we just don't have a whole lot to go on. But we did get some new information today, right? We did get some new information. Hope you feel better too, Growski, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Did Gronsky just get stuck with the B? Gronsky, it would be better if we could do it tomorrow. Gronsky, but not feel well. Bee, oh, bee sting. Yeah, you got bit by a bee. Yeah, I hope you are not allergic. No doubt about it. All right, everybody. I have to go to the hospital when stung and 5 hours monitoring. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting. For some people, they have that where they get stung and they have that reaction. Oh, wow. Got you right in the stitches of your eye. Got you. You might want to go get to the hospital or doctors or wherever you go, the hospital, and get seen, my friend. I would do that ASAP. Yeah, get checked. No sense of taking chances, my friend. Just either have either drive, have your wife take you, or call an ambulance or something. But get checked out. I have a good friend of mine here that is allergic, and he gets stung. Man, he's got to go to the emergency room so they can make sure that everything is good to go. If possible, I would do that, Gronsky. Last thing we need is another devil pup to be literally under the weather like that. It is life threatening. Absolutely. I had an eyebrow lift, swelling hurts. Just get in there and see, doc. If you can, get to an emergency room and just have them check it out. It's better to be safe than sorry, my friend. Mayonnaise, free Botox, free Botox says Maddox. Marianne, get checked. L, it's strange how so many folks are allergic to bees. Yeah, just that chemical makeup in the body, I guess. Yeah, it is really. Yeah, that's one thing I'm glad I don't have, but doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. That's for sure. I am icing and very tired. Well, if you can get seen, get seen. If not, and if you think you can handle it, then do the ice pack thing and get some rest. But yeah, EpiPen is temporary and still have to have treatment. Oh God, get seen if you can, Groundsky. Get seen if you can because you definitely want to err on caution, no doubt about it, especially with something like that. Mannix, I have delayed reactions and allergic to bees. Groundsky, please go see. Groundsky, I have an EpiPen. Yeah, if it doesn't get better quickly or get better when it's supposed to get better, by the time it's supposed to get better, then get in there and see. Go to the emergency room and get checked out because once again, it's better to be safe than sorry. Chris, I'm definitely allergic. I get stung. I have like 15 minutes to get to the doctor or the hospital before I stop reading it. There you go. There you go. No doubt about it. I mean, this is like these people that are allergic to peanuts, right? They eat peanut butter and everything swells up. They eat peanuts and everything gets swollen up. And next thing you know, it's not nothing to joke around with or play around with. No doubt about it. Oh, me too, but you still have to go to the ER and you use it. April, it's only temporary, Gronsky. Marianne, please get checked. I've heard, I've never had to use mine. Luckily, April, I have to get 6 shots and 5 hours monitoring. Oh, wow. after the EpiPen. Manix, to tell the truth, EpiPen buy you about 5 minutes. I will call my contact for my to-go plan. All right. Just get it done, Gronsky. Get it done so you can feel better. Everybody, let's go ahead and call this live so Gronsky can go ahead and get checked out on. We'll be back at 5. Say your prayers if you can for Gronsky. He goes and gets checked out and this thing can get resolved. God bless everybody. Thank you so much for being here on the 5th of July, the day after the big 4th of July. Appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the gifts and everything. Appreciate every one of you. You guys make this channel great, and we are growing. We are definitely growing, everybody. If you want to know the numbers, email me. I'll be more than happy to show you the numbers. We are getting up there, but it's, like anything, it takes time. And we'll go from there. With that, God bless you all. We'll figure it out. We'll always figure it out because it's all common sense, everybody. Everything is common sense. Get checked out, Growski. See you guys back at 5 o'clock. See you all soon, everybody. God bless you and thank you for being here. 5 o'clock. Semper Fi. It's all common sense, everybody.